moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank third in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least one foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance, where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The Three Seas Initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the Three Seas Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the Three Seas Initiative. The Three Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the Three Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank third in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance, where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The Three Seas Initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the Three Seas Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the Three Seas Initiative. The Three Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the Three Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank third in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The Three Seas Initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the Three Seas Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the Three Seas Initiative. The Three Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the Three Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank third in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is
answer the last question. If there is time, I'll answer it.
Okay. Just wait until ministers are seated. Minister Todorov, Honorable Minister Adamczyk, Vice Minister Sechter, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the transport panel of the 3Cs Summit here in the beautiful city of Sofia. I'm very happy to present a wonderful panel for our discussions today that will hopefully build also on the powerful messages that the heads of delegations, the presidents, sent yesterday with regard to the importance of connectivity. And as I think one thing that the pandemic has showed us is the fundamental importance of connectivity. It's an indispensable basic human right. And if someone is doubting that, think of the stranded couples due to the transatlantic travel ban, or grandparents not meeting their grandchildren. So connectivity has proven to be a fundamental necessity of all of us. And at the same time, we have seen and admired also the resilience of the freight supply chain. And we will try to address some of these subjects in today's discussion, which will combine high-level political leader messages with a very diverse, multimodal, multi-country panel for you to also expand on these items. To lay the foundations for our discussion, I also wanted to allude to some of the messages from yesterday's presidential panel. Our host and patron for the summit, President Radev, he of course talked about some of the challenges of connectivity infrastructure in this region. He also emphasized the importance of developing the north-south axis as the backbone for the connectivity also between the three seas that are represented here. President Steinmeier recognized that in many ways promoting connectivity has always been a core objective of the entire European Union. President Nauseda, in his video address, he talked about the shortening of the supply chain, especially on the backdrop of the pandemic. President Levits of Latvia emphasized that the Three Seas initiative has been politically inspired, but at the same time commercially driven. And I hope that we can take some of these messages and develop them further. And the last message coming from the managing director of IMF, Madam Georgieva, is that investments in infrastructure come with very powerful multipliers, 1.7 to 2.5. So thinking in terms of how we can develop multimodal, physical, commercial, and digital infrastructure will be at the heart of today's discussion. But to open the panel, I'm very privileged to give word to the host of this transport panel, the sectoral leader from Bulgaria, Minister Todorov. The floor is yours.
Уважаеми дами и господа, за мен е чест и привилегия да съм един от основните говорители в панел Транспорт на бизнес форума в рамките на среща на върха по инициативата Три морета, чието тазгодишен домакин е България.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and privilege for me to be one of the keynote speakers in the transport panel of the business forum within the summit of the Three Seas initiative, this year hosted by Bulgaria.
Удоволствие да видя, че събитието преминава при широк интерес, едновременно от страна на държавните ръководства и на бизнеса.
It is a pleasure to see that this event enjoys wide interest both by government and business representatives.
Убеден съм, че обединяването на усилията на държавите от региона между Адриатическо, Балтийско и Черно море, насочени към подобряване на свързаността, ще допринесат за преодоляването на съществуващите пропуски и недостатъци в инфраструктурата на Източна Европа.
I'm convinced that the combined efforts of the countries from the region between the Adriatic, Baltic and Black Sea aimed at improving connectivity will contribute to the overcoming of the existing gaps and deficiencies in infrastructure in Eastern Europe.
Модернизацията, цифровизацията и зеления преход във всички видове транспорт, чрез отговорна държавна политика и чрез привличане на чуждестранни инвестиции и капитали, също така ще помогнат за постигане на устойчива свързаност, ускорено икономическо развитие и подобряване на конкурентоспособността.
The modernization, digitalization and the green transition in all modes of transportation through responsible public policy and by attracting foreign investment and capital will also help in achieving sustainable connectivity, also to accelerate economic development and to improve competitiveness.
Особено важна е ролята на инициативата за бизнеса, като платформа за взаимодействие с огромен потенциал за бъдещето реализиране на инвестиции и иновации в областите на транспортната, енергийната и цифровата инфраструктура.
The role of this initiative is also very important as a business platform for their interaction, especially with huge potential for the future achievement of investments and the execution of innovations in the fields of transport, energy and digital infrastructure.
В тази връзка считаме, че инициативата вече дава резултати с реализацията на първите два проекта в Естония и Полша със съдействие и финансиране от инвестиционния фонд на инициативата Три морета.
In this regard, we believe that the initiative has already achieved results with the implementation of the first two projects in Estonia and Poland with the assistance and the funding from the investment fund of the Three Seas initiative.
Подобряването на свързаността по направлението Север-Юг като приоритет на инициативата е съществено за укрепване на връзките между държавите участнички. В този смисъл оценяваме приобщаването на Република Гърция като важно за транспортната свързаност с България. Двете страни работят усилено за подобряването на възможностите във всички видове транспорт и развитието на проекти по това направление.
The improvement of the north-south axis connectivity as a priority of the initiative is essential in strengthening the ties between all participating countries. In this sense, we consider the inclusion of the Hellenic Republic as an very important for the transport connection with Bulgaria. Both countries are working intensely to improve opportunities in all modes of transport and to develop projects in this area.
От съществено значение за нас е ускореното финализиране на дейностите по изграждане на транспортната инфраструктура по протежението на бившия паневропейски коридор номер 8 в неговата част между България, Република Северна Македония и Република Албания, който ще осигури устойчива свързаност между българските черноморски пристанища с крайбрежието на Адриатика.
It is essential for us to achieve the completion of the activities for the construction of transport infrastructure along the former Pan-European Corridor number 8, in its part between Bulgaria, the Republic of North Macedonia, and the Republic of Albania, which will ensure sustainable connectivity between Bulgarian Black Sea ports and the Adriatic coast.
Министерството на транспорта, информационните технологии и съобщенията работи активно за подобряването на мобилността и свързаността на двустранна и многостранна основа с държавите от региона на Западните Балкани.
The Ministry of Transport, Information Technology and Communication is actively working to improve mobility and connectivity on a bilateral and multilateral basis with the countries of the Western Balkans region.
Въз основа на казаното до тук, бих искал да се спра на основната тема на панела, касаеща цифрова мобилност и да насоча вниманието и конкретно към цифровизацията на железопътния транспорт.
Based on what has been said so far, I would like to focus on the main panel topic concerning digital mobility and to draw your attention especially to the digitalization of rail transport.
Цифровизацията на железниците е от съществено значение за Министерството, като водеща институция за един от приоритетните проекти с трансгранично и вертикално значение по инициативата Три морета, а именно проекта за възстановяване на проектните параметри на ЖП линията Русе-Варна.
The digitalization of the railways is essential for the Ministry of Transport, Information Technology and Communications as a leading institution for one of the priority projects with cross-border and vertical significance under the 3Cs initiative, namely the project for restoration of the design parameters of the Ruse-Varna railway.
Цифровизацията на железопътния транспорт обединява две от трите водещи линии на сътрудничество в рамките на инициативата Три морета – транспорт и цифровизация. Разбирането ни е, че дейностите по цифровизиране на железопътния транспорт ще са от решаващо значение в бъдеще с оглед на новата роля на железопътния транспорт в контекста на зелената сделка, икономическото възстановяване от последствията от пандемията, както и политиките на Европейския съюз за създаване на постоянна тенденция за пренасочване на товарни превози от автомобилен към железопътен транспорт. Темата е актуална и във връзка с текущата Европейска година на железопътния транспорт.
The digitalization of railway transport unites two of the core lines of cooperation within the 3C initiative, transport and digitalization. Our understanding is that digitalization of rail transport will be decisive in the future, given the new role of rail transport in the context of the Green Deal, the economic recovery from the effects of the pandemic, and the EU policies aimed to create a lasting trend to shift freight transport from road to rail. The topic is also relevant in connection with the current European Year of Rail.
В В момента мобилността и транспортът в Европа преминават към една много по-екологична и по-цифровизирана система. Целта е чрез модернизацията и цифровизацията на ЖП транспорта да се намали въглеродния отпечатък на транспортния сектор и да се подобри сигурността и качеството на услугите.
Mobility and transport in Europe are now moving to a much greener and more digitalized system. The aim is to reduce the carbon footprint of the transport sector and to improve the security and quality of services through the modernization and digitalization of rail transport.
Изключително важно е своевременното адаптиране на железопътния сектор към бързо развиващата се технологична среда и въздействието ѝ върху новите тенденции. На секторно ниво железниците проучват всички възможности да се адаптират и интегрират в новата цифрова екосистема, за да запазят силната си икономическа позиция в Европа и света.
The timely adaptation of the railway sector to the rapidly evolving technological environment and its impact on new trends is extremely important. At the sectoral level, the railways are exploring all possibilities to adapt and integrate into the new digital ecosystem in order to maintain their strong economic position in Europe and the world.
Вярвам, че с инициативата Три морета ще бъдат генерирани и осъществени нови идеи в областта на усъвременяване на процесите за цифровизацията на железопътната инфраструктура и поставянето им като приоритетна цел за бъдещото развитие на железопътния транспорт, който да се реализира като безопасен, бърз, ефективен, зелен и сигурен транспорт, предпочитан от клиентите.
We believe that the 3Cs initiative will generate and implement new ideas in the field of modernization of the processes for digitalization of railway infrastructure and setting them as a priority goal for the future development of railway transport to be realized as safe, fast, efficient, green and secure transport preferred by customers.
В заключение, позволете ми още веднъж да благодаря за предоставената ми възможност да бъда част от тази годишния бизнес форум в рамките на срещата на върха по инициативата Три морета. Желая на всички участници ползотворна дискусия. Благодаря.
In conclusion, let me once again thank you for the opportunity to be part of this year's business forum within the 3Cs Summit Initiative. I wish all participants a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Todorov, and also thank you for also encouraging the expansion of the geography of the 3Cs initiative. Indeed, when we speak about connectivity, there should be no borders to how far we can expand that on the multimodal perspective, and also for alluding to the digitalization of railways, especially during the European Year of Rail. Going further, yesterday, President Duda shared with us his family story from many years back on how he traveled from Krakow all the way to Greece and, of course, experienced firsthand the differences between infrastructural development in Central and the Eastern European countries compared to the etalon of the German Autobahns. Today, Poland is, of course, one of the countries that's promoting world-class infrastructure and has achieved a significant degree of success. And many of us living near Poland or in Poland, of course, see that spectacular development of infrastructure. So to speak about that, we are honored to have Minister Adamczyk, the Minister of Transport of Poland. Please, the floor is yours.
Wielce Szanowni Państwo, Panie i Panowie Ministrowie, Panowie Prezesi, Dyrektorzy, wszyscy ci, którym bliska jest idea Trójmorza, bliska jest idea dobrych, bezpiecznych, komfortowych, przewidywanych połączeń nie tylko drogowych, nie tylko kolejowych, ale również i cyfrowych.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Mr. Ministers, dear directors, ladies and gentlemen, welcome all my dear friends, all of you who are friends of this initiative, who are friends of this idea of making connections between the people, between the nations of this part of the continent.
Cieszę się, że możemy spotkać się w tym gronie i dyskutować o przyszłości sektora transportowego w naszym regionie, ale przecież o przyszłości sektora transportowego w całej Unii Europejskiej.
And I'm really happy that we can meet here in this group and we can discuss the future of the transportation system, transportation segments of our region, but also wider transportation throughout Europe.
Dzisiaj w tej debacie, jak i wczoraj w debacie prezydenckiej, o których mówił pan moderator, przewijają się szczególnie wątki Europy, regionu Trójmorza, jak i Europy Środkowej.
And obviously in the discussions we had yesterday, but also in the discussions we have today, we definitely discussed the most extensively the transportation needs of the countries of the Three Seas Initiative.
Prowadzący dzisiejsze spotkanie przywołał wczorajsze słowa pana prezydenta Andrzeja Dudy o tym, jak zmienia się Europa Środkowa pod względem możliwości komunikacyjnych.
Mr. Moderator mentioned the words we heard yesterday from the President of Poland, Mr. Duda, who was talking about how significantly transportation possibilities in Europe have changed.
I te doświadczenia pana prezydenta sprzed lat, kiedy kilkanaście godzin jechał do Grecji, czy bodaj 2 dni, całą dobę, ponad dobę, i te doświadczenia dzisiejsze tych zmian świadczą o tym, że warto pracować, warto wyznaczać sobie wspólne cele, warto się wzajemnie wspierać.
And those memories from more than a dozen years ago when Mr. President Duda, when it took more than a day, up to even 2 days to travel from south of Poland to Greece. And if we compare those experiences from the past with what we can experience now and how we are changing Europe, definitely demonstrate that we need to set our goals and we need to pursue the goals.
Jestem przekonany, że nam wszystkim tutaj obecnym i wszystkim tym, którzy realizują ideę Trójmorza, zależy szczególnie na tym, aby uzyskać wysoką dynamikę rozwoju wspólnych sieci komunikacyjnych.
And I'm convinced that all of us for whom it is very important to develop the Three Seas transportation network, it is also important for all of us to change this part of the continent and to introduce all these new connectivity options.
Pan wspomniał dzisiaj, otwierając tą naszą debatę, o słowach prezydentów, o kolejnych wątkach wystąpień prezydenckich.
Mr. Moderator also have mentioned today some ideas discussed by the presidents yesterday in the presidential panel.
Ja przywołam wystąpienie pani prezydent Grecji, która powiedziała wyraźnie, że Europa Trójmorza to korzyści dla wszystkich, jak i dla pojedynczych ich uczestników tego projektu.
Let me also mention the words of one of the presidents. Let me mention the words we heard from Madam President of Greece, who said that the Three Seas Initiative, it means benefits for all the countries of the initiatives, but also for all the countries individually.
I tutaj pani prezydent odniosła się do tego, że oto Via Carpatia, to szczególne połączenie drogowe łączące kraje Trójmorza, to szansa dla portów greckich, to szansa dla Via Egnatii, tego połączenia drogowego, które już istnieje, to szansa dla portów greckich.
And Madam President also mentioned that Via Carpatia creates great opportunity for Via Egnatia and also for the Greek ports. So the Greek ports will benefit on that as well.
Ale to szansa dla nas wszystkich i odniosę się do rozmów ze stroną estońską, kiedy minister Estonii mówi wyraźnie, że warto skupić się na połączeniach komunikacyjnych naszych państw, ale też warto spoglądać dalej, bo przecież Estonia prowadzi już przygotowania wraz z Finlandią do trasowania tego połączenia stałego w Finlandii z Estonią, Tallina z Helsinkami.
But let me also mention what I heard from the minister from Estonia. He was really happy when we were talking about Via Carpathia and all these connectivities throughout this part of the continent. But we also need to go further. We need to look further, as he was also mentioning. He was also discussing the idea of the regular fixed connection of Tallinn and Helsinki, of Estonia and Finland.
A tutaj już krok tylko do Via Skandynawia. Także całą resztę możemy sobie wyobrazić, jak olbrzymi potencjał drzemie w tym naszym projekcie.
And if we make this happen, we will be only one step to achieve Via Scandinavia. So please see how far we can go with this project.
Pozwalam sobie odwołać do własnego doświadczenia, kiedy w 2006 roku pan prezydent Lech Kaczyński inicjował porozumienie w sprawie Via Carpatii. Trzeba było wiele debaty i dyskusji, do czego ona jest przydatna.
Let me also mention my own memories. When in 2006 Mr. President Lech Kaczyński was signing the idea of Via Carpathia, it had required quite a lot of discussions and convincing people, explaining what the road is going to be used for.
Przypomnę, w 2016 roku wraz z ministrami transportu 9 państw pochylaliśmy się nad problemem realizacji Via Carpatii, na ile ona jest potrzebna. Przekonywaliśmy siebie jeszcze nawzajem.
In 2016, I was discussing with 9 Ministers of Transport, and we were convincing each other, we were explaining to each other why we really need this connection, I mean Via Carpathia.
Dzisiaj pojawia się jedno pytanie. Kiedy? Kiedy Via Carpatia zostanie ukończona?
And now the question is different. Now the question is just when Via Carpathia will be ready.
I to świadczy o dynamice zmian z naszej świadomości, dynamice zmian w realizacji tego wielkiego projektu.
And this proves the change in the dynamics. It proves the change in way of thinking on this huge project.
Tutaj pierwsze efekty już widać. Realna realizacja Via Carpatii na Litwie. W Polsce realizujemy prawie 700 kilometrów drogi o parametrach drogi autostradowej. Ona praktycznie jest w pełni w realizacji, albo w realizacji bezpośredniej, albo w przygotowaniu dokumentacji technicznej.
And now the first results are tangible. You can see them. Please look into Lithuania, how much they have completed. Also in Poland, we have works on the full length of the motorway standard road. Either physically, there are machines operating on the construction site, or we are working on the paperwork to start working on site.
Nie dalej jak w sierpniu przyjaciele węgierscy otworzą całą Via Carpatię w całym przebiegu przez Republikę Węgierską. Będzie już dostępna komunikacyjnie.
And it will be just in August this year when our Hungarian friends will open the full length of Via Carpatia in their country. It will be fully available.
Ale przecież Via Carpatia to nie jedyny projekt, który wymaga od nas dbałości i tutaj z tego miejsca ponownie zaapeluję i poproszę, abyśmy w trakcie rewizji sieci bazowej TEN-T zabiegali o to, aby Via Carpatia w całości została wpisana do sieci bazowej. To się już dzieje, to będzie się finalizowało jesienią tego roku w Brukseli.
And construction of Via Carpathia, this is not the only thing we want to talk about. We also need to start discussing how to work on including of Via Carpathia into TEN-T base grid. And this is going to happen in autumn this year. We will be doing this in Brussels.
I tutaj jest bardzo ważne, abyśmy byli jednomyślni w stanowisku wobec wpisania Via Carpatii do sieci bazowej.
And we need to be univocal doing this. We need to work hard on including of Via Carpathia into the base network of Europe.
Ale przecież Trójmorze to nie tylko połączenia drogowe, to połączenia kolejowe, to chociażby kolej szybkich prędkości zainicjowana przez naszych kolegów Węgrów, łącząca Budapeszt przez Słowację, Czechy z Warszawą.
But obviously, the 3Cs initiatives, it is not only about the road connectivity, it is also about the rail connectivity. And please look into Hungary and how they started the project of connecting Budapest via Slovakia with Warsaw.
Ale to przecież Rail Baltica, która w połączeniu z bursztynowym korytarzem kolejowym i dalej szlakami na południe.
And please also remember Via Baltica, that together with the Amber Corridor, this will be another corridor going farther to the south.
Utworzy, a czas to już dzisiaj powiedzieć, utworzy korytarz komunikacyjny Rail Carpathia.
And this will allow us to achieve the communication corridor Rail Carpathia, and we need to say it very clearly now.
Rail Carpathia, jakże oczekiwana, a przecież w swoim wymiarze czysty transport. Odpowiadamy tym samym na wyzwania, które przed nami stoją, likwidacji czy maksymalnego zmniejszenia śladu węglowego.
And Rail Carpathia is our response to the environmental challenges and requirements we face. It is a clean way of transport, and this will allow us to diminish, to eliminate, or at least to go down to maximum with our footprint.
Bardzo ważne znaczenie mają również połączenia lotnicze.
And obviously the aviation connectivity is as well very important.
Jest tutaj z nami jeden z najbliższych moich współpracowników, pan minister Marcin Horała, pełnomocnik rządu Rzeczypospolitej do spraw budowy centralnego portu komunikacyjnego.
And we've got with us Mr. Marcin Horała, who is the plenipotentiary of the Polish government on the construction of the Solidarity Central Communication Hub.
Mam nadzieję, jestem przekonany, że Marcin doskonale rozwinie ten wątek w czasie panelu ekspertów.
And I am convinced, I am sure that Marcin will be broadly discussing this idea in this communication panel.
Szanowni Państwo, wszystkie wcześniej wspomniane ważne inwestycje transportowe są elementem budowania pozycji i spójności komunikacyjnej krajów całego regionu oraz mają wpływ na ich rozwój gospodarczy.
Ladies and gentlemen, all these communication projects we have just mentioned definitely significantly influence on the economic development of all the countries involved in the process.
Powyższe projekty to także wyraźny sygnał, że poważnie podchodzimy do ograniczenia szkodliwych emisji CO2, a przy ich realizacji dbamy również o działania, które przyczynią się do poszanowania ochrony środowiska.
And all these projects are clear demonstration, clear proof that we very seriously treat the environmental aspects and we want to decrease the emission of CO2 and we want to take care of the environment.
Mam nadzieję, że nasza dzisiejsza dyskusja okaże się dla nas wszystkich owocna i przekuje się w konkretne działania, w konkretne decyzje.
And I believe that the discussion we are going to have today will be transferred into very tangible results.
Ścisła współpraca Polski z innymi partnerami Trójmorza w zakresie transportu i infrastruktury, którą tą deklarację stale podtrzymujemy i stale realizujemy, przyniesie wymierne i przynosi wymierne, mam nadzieję, korzyści wszystkim stronom naszego porozumienia.
and strong cooperation of Poland with all our partners within the 3C initiative, as I believe, is bringing and will also bring in the future very tangible benefits for all our nations and countries.
Z optymizmem spoglądam na przyszły rozwój transportu w naszym regionie i mam nadzieję, że przywołany przykład, wczorajsza wypowiedź pana prezydenta Andrzeja Dudy będzie już absolutnie opisem historycznym kłopotów komunikacyjnych, jakie niestety, z którymi mieli do czynienia nasi ojcowie, z którymi mieli do czynienia nasi starsi przyjaciele, a młodzi, którzy wejdą z energią w drugą dekadę XXI wieku, czy w trzecią dekadę, przepraszam, XXIII wieku, już kompletnie nie będą tego doświadczali.
And I am fully convinced and I truly believe that the example mentioned yesterday by Mr. President Andrzej Duda and his experiences in traveling throughout Europe for a very long time, that's going to be just historical memories shortly. And I believe that all these things our fathers remember, our older friends remember, will be shortly forgotten by our younger generation, the generation which is going to follow.
Dziękuję za możliwość wystąpienia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Adamczyk, from this outstanding survey, also of very concrete projects in our part of the world. Indeed, from Via Carpathia and Rail Carpathia to the possibility of connecting into the Greek ports and perhaps adding the fourth C to the 3Cs initiative, but also for mentioning the Tallinn-Helsinki potential fixed link, which would of course also be the perfect complement to another mega project in our region, one that I'm very honored to represent, is the high-speed Rail Baltica project. And indeed, we are looking for tangibility of the benefits and outcomes, and it's no longer a question of why and if, but rather when for many of these projects. So now moving forward, Czech Republic is a country that of course has a strategic geographic location on the one hand with the 3Cs initiative, also Western Europe. And of course we've seen the level of ambition in Czech Republic, for example, with regard to its national high-speed rail program, which is arguably one of the most ambitious in Europe and beyond. So, and on top of course, other infrastructure, multimodal infrastructure being developed in Czech Republic. And to speak about that, we are honored to have Vice Minister Sechter. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much, summit organizers, ministers, excellencies. And I will thank the government of Bulgaria for this summit and especially for the opportunity, invitation of our leading business to this business forum and B2B and B2G discussions at the margin of this summit. Many of our companies are successful not only in Bulgaria but in all markets in 3C initiative region. Even before 3C initiative was created, I spoke with them yesterday, with Czech and Polish companies, and there's really a success on this business level, and this is driven by business future and opportunities that we are in governments now more together in this initiative. For me, 3C initiative is the clearest concrete initiative in transatlantic cooperation since joining of our countries in NATO. On the topic, I would here mentioned yesterday a sentence of and be inspired by President Biden in his short speech yesterday. We have come in our countries in 30 years a very long and successful way. We are a member of NATO. We secured our transatlantic security link. We joined the EU, and some countries in 2004 and some countries like Bulgaria afterwards. But now it's time to look around, to join our economic and intellectual sources and forces, and to say we can do it together. Each of our 3C initiative countries had significant success in modernization of society, in the establishing of market economies, and visible results in infrastructure modernization. We are all working to close all the gaps in infrastructure, in security infrastructure, NATO, Eastern flank, and in living standard for our citizens. We are tackling European cohesion on the ground every day. Now to our topics, digital mobility, and the physical, digital and commercial requirements for the development of multimodal connectivity. It's not only value itself, but this is a big chance for us to accelerate our development by skipping many of steps of development of Western Europe countries. In transport infrastructure, there are 3 dimensions of digital mobility. It's customer dimension, market, interoperability and liberalization dimension, and safety, security dimension. The first, customer dimension, is very important, and specifically transport infrastructure is probably the most visible, most understandable area of progress for the citizens of our countries and success of 3C initiative cooperation. In the Czech Republic, for example, this year, we launched one ticket on the railways. We integrated different products from different rail operators on our market into one ticket in the single market offering. On the roads, we are leader in technology, interoperability and intelligence system called C-Roads. We assume that in few years, most of the road and all vehicles will know each other, communicate with each other, and communicate with the infrastructure. We are already seeing by pilot projects in our country the successful effect of traffic management. The infrastructure gap exists on roads, highways. Yesterday, Polish president told about his journey between Krakow and Greece, but I can mention that we discuss now in upcoming Slovenian presidency the optimal ways to Ljubljana. For summits between Prague and Ljubljana, it's the same. There are many small gaps. And between Czech Republic and Baltic states, it's the same. And between Czech Republic and Balkans. We can go in every direction and we can find this need to improvement. The gaps exist on railways, on highways, in regional airports, and in inland waterways infrastructure. That is why we are pushing, it was mentioned by Minister Adamczyk, in revision of TEN-T in all areas, and it's our priority. Our government will need the support of business in this. The whole process will end, this revision of TEN-T 2023, and short before decision will be done by Czech presidency in EU Council 2022. We are seriously considering airspace as an infrastructure, and we want to manage. We have started with drones and with unmanned aerial vehicles, and again, this is about communication between ground and between all participants in air, and we believe that we will be able to organize a smart management into air traffic, and will be able to develop our air traffic onto new dimension. The third dimension is safety. As an example, to European Railway Traffic Management System, European standard for the automatic train protection and command and control system, it creates an interoperable railway system in Europe that is more efficient and safer. It contributes to making rail operation between member states, not only among us, but between all member states, much easier and is an essential element of single European railway area for the future. This system is not only safety, but we need more capacity on our infrastructure, and when we need more speed, less speed restriction. That is why we are developing major infrastructure projects with each other and together to bridge all this gap. What is necessary on rail in Central Europe, in V4 high-speed railway system, which we want to connect not only with Western Europe and with Austria, but in the north with Rail Baltica, and in the south with Slovenia, Italy, and later with Balkan states. We want to improve inland shipping infrastructure. In the Czech Republic, it's modernization of Elbe infrastructure together with Germany and other infrastructure together with Poland. We support major motorway projects such as Via Carpathia, and we are completing our all cross-border connections, get these gaps with each other. In this initiative, we believe this multiplication of economic effect and well-managed and completed infrastructure projects are essential. Yesterday, Ms. Kristalina Georgieva, Managing Director of International Monetary Fund, explained us the calculation of the multiplier effect of our infrastructure investment. It was mentioned 1.7 to 2.5 times of invested fund. If we are more and more industrialized countries, this effect will be more multiplied than in this International Monetary Fund analyzed. This is our Czech perspective. I look forward to further discussion in this forum. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Minister, and especially thank you for reminding us that there's always the customer or the people's perspective. It is always easy to get carried away with mega projects and construction projects, but at the end of the day, it's the people that we are delivering this infrastructure for, especially with the view of the digital native generation who will be using that infrastructure for many, many decades to come. We'll have a short technical break at the moment, but please don't run away. We have a fantastic panel coming up. The panel we'll start with short introductions by each panelist, and then we will have a free-flowing panel discussion, and very much encouraging also the audience to prepare your questions. Also the online viewers, we will be able to take a few of those as well. So a short 30-second break until we come back with all the panelists.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the Three Seas Initiative. The Three Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the Three Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world.
Perfect. So let's kick off the second part. Again, this will be a free-flowing panel discussion with a fantastic cast of panelists. I think we're missing Vice Minister Sechter, but he's joining shortly. So, without any further ado, I wanted to introduce the first panelist, Stefano Maio. He's a business development manager in Balkans for Bechtel, which was set up in California more than 100 years ago. The project portfolio for this kind of global engineering and project management giant includes Crossrail, High Speed 1, Channel Tunnel, 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, and of course the Hoover Dam. So it's a privilege for us to have you, Steph. The floor is yours with the presentation.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. Casper, thank you for having us. Fellow panelists, it's an honor to be here. About 10 minutes ago, Casper said something about it's no longer the if and why, it's the when. And I'm going to give you a 5-minute introduction, a bit of how. You may recognize this picture if you've traveled between London and Paris on the Eurostar. This is the high-speed rail link between the United Kingdom and France. And Bechtel had the tremendous opportunity to be part of this project, of this signature project back in the late 80s. We are an engineering, construction, and project management company. We are US-based. Our headquarters are in the United Kingdom, which may explain why I attended breakfast with the US delegation yesterday morning and then had lunch with the UK representatives in the afternoon. If you're wondering where I'm from my accent, I'll give you a hint. We're playing a football match on Sunday evening. I'm also half South African and can proudly say that I'm responsible for 2 of the 100 nationalities working in Bechtel. I'm not an engineer. I look more at the commercial aspects, and I've had the opportunity to be on 5 of the 25,000 projects that we've built. We are 120 years old. Our first contract was in 1898 by our founder, Warren Bechtel. It was a railway contract, and since then we've sort of embarked on various other aspects. I've had the opportunity to work in Africa, in continental Europe, in the United Kingdom, and more recently in the Balkans, where we have a 112-kilometer motorway connecting Corridor 10 and Corridor 11. We have 4 business lines. Oil and gas, where we do a lot of LNG projects. As you may know, LNG prices have sort of dropped in recent times, so we're no longer reliant on them and have to sort of diversify. We do a lot of work in mining and metals with companies like Rio Tinto and BHP Billington, and a lot of nuclear build, either greenfield or improvements. Recent success in Poland, we signed a FEED for a front-end nuclear project, and I have to say thank you to our colleagues from DIT and Aggie sitting here for their support. The 4th business line is infrastructure, which is the unit that I work for. I've had 10 incredible years working with Bechtel, supporting governments to raise financing. I spent a couple of years in the United Kingdom on an electrification project between London and Cardiff. I spent many Christmas nights and New Year's Eves working in Paddington Station, because when you're working on a live railway, you need some specific slots where you can go and work. I then moved to Birmingham, where Bechtel is supporting High Speed 2 with a development. It's a high-speed line that goes from Houston all the way through Birmingham up north. And as I mentioned, I've spent the last 2 years doing business development for Central Europe and Eastern Europe. We've built 700 kilometers of motorways in the Balkans. I'm hoping to reach 1,000 in the next 5 years and continue to grow that portfolio. I think one of the assets that myself and colleagues have in a company like Bechtel, where we support customers, but we also build infrastructure, is the concept of being a practitioner, where we know how to build, but at the same time can support big, complex customers to deliver key infrastructure. Excuse me. Before I hand over to my fellow panelists, I wanted to share these two testimonials with you. The first one is from Network Rail, the owner of the infrastructure, railway infrastructure in the United Kingdom. We've had a 20-year plus relationship with them. As Caspar mentioned, we worked with them on Crossrail, which is a $20 billion railway under the heart of London. Had the chance to do electrification for Network Rail between Paddington and Cardiff. That's a $3 billion scheme, and then the West Coast main line. The second is from the owner and operator of the airport, McCarran Airport in Las Vegas. We've had a 25-year relationship there with them, and I can proudly say that my colleagues were able to support the customer to, believe it or not, finish 1 year in advance and on budget. The key aspect of both of these testimonials, and I think it's going to be a recurring theme, or at least I hope, during the panel, of how critical is the governance, the organization structure, the communication lines between the owner at the highest level all the way through the supply chain, and the aspect of trust and delegated authority when a customer wants to only be a customer and relies on different entities to deliver the project. That's my introduction. Thank you for inviting me, and all the best with the 3C's objectives.
Thank you, Stefano, and we'll definitely come back to the issue of kind of the challenges behind mega project delivery, but also, how digitalization can improve both the delivery and the future management of those assets. Now, turning to Minister Horala, who is the government plenipotentiary with another mega project, and this is a real big one. It's the new airport of Poland. It's the new high-speed railway hub of Poland. It's basically the transport heart of future Poland, which will aim to connect all of the main cities within a span of 2 hours. So this is indeed a wonderful project, and we are honored to have you, Minister. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. And let's start with So as you mentioned, Solidarity Transport Hub is an investment project centered around new airport hub. Poland currently doesn't have an airport that could be a hub for intercontinental flights, and we want to build one. It will be, for the first stage, somewhere around 40-45 million passengers per year, with a possibility to expand in the future up to 100 million passengers. And together with that, there will be a railway node for the whole new high-speed rail system in Poland. That means constructing up to 1,800 kilometers of high-speed rails, new high-speed rail lines, also modernization of existing ones. There's also the real estate and land acquisition and management, because this new airport hub and new railway node around it would be one of the best places to invest in Central Europe, or maybe in Europe as a whole. We want to attract and help the investors to be with us. And then Erythropolis and development. This great investment project can also be a catalyst or speeding up factor for developing new technologies, also sustainable growth, also growing the surrounding cities, urban development, etc., etc. We also want to speed that up. As you can see, STH will be located in central Poland between Warsaw and Łódź, in the heart of new railway system, but also very well connected with the motorway system. So full multimodality there, and probably it will be a factor that will also enhance growth of Warsaw and Łódź metropolis, creating in the more distant future probably first Central Europe megalopolis connecting those two cities together. We have a number of factors or issues that are really important for us in this project. First is, of course, and foremost, is rail connectivity. If you look at the investment program, CAPEX-wise, actually most of it is investment in rail, in new railway system. As you said, we want to provide up to 2 hours connections into almost all Polish cities, bigger cities, and also cross-border connections, acting as a link between Baltic states, between V4 states, etc. Of course, we want to reduce transport exclusion. That's really important, that we have to be aware that social exclusion not always means that you are too poor for some services, for some goods. That's the economic exclusion, but it also could be a transport exclusion, that all those goods, all those services are theoretically available to you, but you just can't get to them fast enough, convenient enough, or cheap enough. So to support social growth and to develop the country, all regions of the country, you have to provide affordable, convenient connectivity to the people. And one of the goals of our investor system is our investment program is to do just that. Of course, multimodality, full integrations of all means of transport, actually even the sea transport. We have formed a strategic partnership with Port of Gdynia to improve connections between STH and the seaport so that we can offer absolutely full multimodality, all means of transport available, interconnected. You can switch between them. That's really important for us to develop this as a whole new transport system, not a couple of projects that may be nice, may be well developed, but they don't play as a team. Teamwork between means of transport is very important for us. Of course, sustainability. This is, you can't avoid that, and this is really important in the modern world, that actually to achieve sustainability, I think that's really important to say. You have to invest, because some environmentalists, some pro-environment groups tend to be against any investments. They say, okay, there's a beautiful land site, my green forest, and you want to cut down those trees and build this horrible rail line, for example. So they are against that. But if you block all the investments, you end up with petrification of current transport system, high emission, road-oriented, etc. So if you do care about the future of our planet, and how dare you not, then you need to support investment in new transport systems that are sustainable, that are low emission or even zero emission. You have to build this new system, you have to invest. And of course, digital data-driven transport, there's also no way around it. To provide high-end solutions for modern people to meet their needs, you have to digitalize, you have to use all the solutions available at the moment and in the future. So thank you for that, and looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. We all agree that this is very, very impressive. I think it's the level of greenfield ambition only matched by our friends in the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. So indeed, very happy to see how this is shaping up. And again, your emphasis not just on the physical side of that mega infrastructure development, but also on the long-term elements, the sustainability, digitalization, wider economic impact and benefits for the people. So indeed, an inspirational project for the 3Cs initiative for Europe as a whole and beyond. So now switching over and again to further promote the multimodal element, and in this case, from a freight perspective, we actually have someone that on a daily basis deals with all the different types of freight flows on a multimodal value chain. So we have Javor Panteleev, who's a chairman of the board of the Bulgarian Freight Forwarders Association. So Javor, take us away.
Thank you, Kaspers. Thanks for the invitation, also to the organizers. I would like to say first a few words about what is the forwarder. So the forwarder has no preference for any means of transport. Our aim is to produce a cost-effective and environmental-friendly service. We work with many producers and trading companies. And I think this is why actually our role as freight forwarders is a very big one. We have a very big impact on environmental social governance and the connected businesses. As you all know, there is this EU taxonomy regulation already in force, and because of it, we have to start becoming green. So we have drafted 3 proposals which could be which are good for the 3Cs initiative. They cover all the 3 axes, including transport, digitalization, and also innovations. So the first axe is actually renovation and modernization of the rolling stock. It is very important to have funding for the replacement of the existing vehicles, and here I don't speak only about trucks, I speak also about railway, airplanes, and also ships. Because only by investing in new types of vehicles using alternate fuels, this Green Deal and the decarbonization could be possible. This will lead to a gradual modernization of the rolling stock. It will improve the quality of the transport services, reduce the transport costs, and it will lead to competitiveness not only of the carriers and shippers itself, but of the whole economy. So we have to introduce technical specifications for interoperability. This will lead to more and more multimodality and improve the safety, and we have to reduce the effects of transport and environment, climate, and quality of life. The second proposal we would have for the 3Cs initiative, which could be financed by it, is the achieving connectivity between the countries by building energy-efficient logistics terminals and charging stations. As we all know, Bulgaria, for example, is a country which has not a well-developed railway infrastructure. On the other hand, so our railway infrastructure is basically developed for the needs of serving the transit trains from Western Europe to Turkey. All the rest of the country is in a very bad condition. I think that the similar situation we have also in the rest of the countries of the 3Cs initiative. So by building intermodal and multimodal terminals, we could, of course, help this development. And these multimodal terminals, in the same way, in my opinion, shall be independent. This means that access to them must be given to everyone who wants to use them. In the same time, the governments are good in strategy and policy building, but I don't think that the governments and the states are good in operating such facilities. So these investments, in my opinion, shall come from the business. The business is more flexible and can achieve better results in the operations. Because we cannot forget the trucks, we always speak about railway, but the trucks are also important because the first and last mile are always and will always be delivered by trucks. So charging stations for the new type of vehicles are needed to be built in the same terminals so that these vehicles can charge hydrogen or mixture of methane and hydrogen. And this hydrogen could be produced by solar panels. And of course, the governments shall think about how to produce and to supply the infrastructure needed for these multimodal terminals. On the other hand, the third proposal we have is building intelligent transport systems through digitalization and application of sustainable business models in transport and forwarding. First, this is the digital forwarder. This is something of very big importance in order to work with big data. Producing an electronic environment and digitalizing business processes is another point which we believe will lead to a lot of optimizations. And the third bullet point I have here are the electronic waybills for all types of transports. I will just give you an example. The ECMR is ratified as a protocol in most of the countries, but I can speak about Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, the ratification was in 2012, but we are still not possible to use electronic waybills because of lack of local legislation. So we have the big legislation, but the local one is still missing, and these are 9 years now. At the end, I would like to point out that it is very important to have a synchronized policy between the governments of the countries. This synchronized policy shall be predictive, and the governments shall be committed to what we are speaking today. And only in this way we can innovate all together and achieve better results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Javor, and many thanks also for kind of reminding us to always listen to the customer, because as you said in your first statement, you don't care about the mode as long as the supply chain itself is cost competitive and also environmentally sustainable. That's the one you will pick. So we should always be conscious of not just delivering infrastructure, which is then not multimodally integrated and therefore not competitive. So many thanks for that. And then to further complement the multimodal picture, we are now moving to a very visible maritime port and also going to the Adriatic region. We have the president of the Port of Koper, Dimitri Zadel. Very honored to have you. Please share your insights from a multimodal perspective, especially given that Port of Koper is not just a port authority, it's also a developer of a free economic zone. It operates some of the terminals, and you have a huge variety of different terminals with intermodal interconnections. So please, the floor is yours, and the clicker as well.
Thank you very much. It's quite tough task to explain. So first of all, I would like to show the short video, perhaps, and I would ask you, everybody, to be a bit, to think about the customer and in which role we are. You will see then the video, and then I will stop after the video to provoke a bit, if I'm allowed. May I provoke a bit, moderator?
Absolutely.
May I? Okay. So please take a look on the video. Okay, just a few things. We are multi-purpose port. We are dealing with everything except the crude and the gas. So we have 12 terminals and different equipment for that. Of course, we have to be a green port, and sustainability is not a question. And if you would like to make any project, you have to have the sustainable project from each respect. And here we are coming to the intermodal services, which are very important. And I may say that ports, any kind of ports, are the reason, either the consequence of such initiatives. And we are coming then to the real life, because what you have seen here in the video, you have seen the real life, how much investment you have to do to deal with such services or with such intermodal things, and think about the feasibility. I'm here listening the third time about the projects, and we are fully supporting such initiatives. And I'm thinking about the projects which are in preparation, which are already in the phase to go. And I'm thinking about the feasibility. And we have to do with the feasibility. The projects are ideas are without limitations, and then limitations are coming. And when you're discussing about the limitation, which is the feasibility, if the project is feasible, then we are coming to some dilemmas. And then we are thinking about the larger view, about the geopolitical things, about the ship agencies, new technology in ships, and everything else. The new trains as well, and the digitalization of trains. Of course, this is one thing, one pillow for the future, not just for trains, which all kinds of equipment we have here. Before, Mr. Javor explained a bit what is a forwarder and what is the port. In fact, forwarder is our customer in large scale. He has the order from the customer, and he has to make, as he said as well, the most cost-effective way to transport the good from A to B. And we are in the middle, together with ships, with ports, with train. So, in fact, the forwarder in our case is the main person. And these are also the shipping agencies as well. What is happening now in the last years, that the big shippers or the shipping agencies are becoming also they are having ports in the concession. In our case, this is not the case, and we are dealing with all terminals by ourselves, having the concession as well. And I think this is the unicum in Europe. As far as I was told, such model is not in Europe for the time being, which has pros and cons. But on the other side, what we have to do always to have the feasibility. All the projects has to be feasible. And perhaps this is the provocation for my colleagues in the panelists as well here, how they are dealing with the feasibility in this way, because we are now thinking and seeing just projects drawn on the paper. Yeah? Thank you for that. Sorry to be provocative. And here is one thing about this way as well. It's a common task or a common effort to organize the intermodal thing from Port of Koper to ports in Poland. It's quite a huge task with involvement of all, let's say, a lot of stakeholders, let's say, in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. And provocation is absolutely appreciated. And I also use the opportunity to encourage the audience to prepare your provocative questions. Both the physical audience here and our online viewers will have a chance to take a few of your questions. And to stay with the provocation, I mean, now that we are getting comfortable with the multimodal infrastructure developments that we have, let's talk about disruption. Let's talk about disruptive technologies which are coming there to change the way we do logistics, to change the way how we do medium-haul distribution. And we have a fantastic representative from the disruptive element of our industry. We have Yvette from Dronomics. She's a business developer. Please tell us how drones will change the face of logistics in the medium haul distribution and other elements.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody who's watching us online. My name is Yvette. I'm Director of Business Development at Dronomics. The company was founded back in 2014 by two brothers, Konstantin and Svilen. One of them is an aerospace engineer and the other one's an economist. And really the idea came up when we saw the Amazon drones and we thought, yes, great concept, but not everybody lives in a big house with a big yard where the packages can be dropped, especially in the countries that we're talking about. However, people are becoming more and more demanding. The future of trade is really online, and the current pandemic has proven this. More and more people have started shopping online. 1 in 5 purchases is actually made online. The customer is expecting faster and faster delivery. Something like same day would really be the standard in the future. And we have seen even the main street brands closing down and moving to a more distributed concept where they deliver directly from their warehouses rather than having local representation. Unfortunately, though, the current solutions are not meeting that demand. Airplanes are just too big, they're too expensive to produce, too expensive to operate. They're piloted, they have that big crew that always goes on board with them. On the other hand, trucking, it's too slow, it gets stuck in traffic, in the growing traffic of urbanized areas. It got stuck between borders. Again, last year, springtime, it was a horrible time for the truck drivers, being delayed with not just hours, but days behind the borders. So we really asked ourselves, is there anything we can do to deliver at the speed of air and cost of road transportation? And we came up with our drone and those 3 core technologies that we'll use to operate them. It's a minimum infrastructure of drone ports, standardized drones, and automated pilot system that would control the whole fleet. But to look into more details, what you see here on the diagram is more of the hub concept, where we have a warehouse for the cargo, we have hangar for light maintenance, but ultimately what we need is 400 meters of runway, our ground control station, and some standardized procedure for the cargo handling. In Europe, there are so many unused airfields or fields that are not touched by air cargo at all. And we do believe that those could be utilized for those purposes. In Bulgaria alone, we have such a small country and over 100 airports, and only 2 of them are actually used for air cargo. So you can just calculate for yourself what the big opportunity there is. In terms of our drone, currently we are in a final stage of assembly of the full-scale prototype, which is going to be pretty much similar to a size of a Cessna, and is going to carry about 350 kilograms of payload at a distance of 2,500 kilometers. Because we've started with e-commerce in mind, we've actually made the cargo hold quite bulky, so you can put nearly 3 cubic meters of cargo inside, which is what e-commerce needs. As you probably know, it involves a lot of packages, a lot of bubbling, and all that. So in other applications, throughout the years, we've seen many verticals. One of them is for preserving the cool chain in terms of pharmaceuticals, perishable deliveries. You might have heard smaller drones already delivering vaccines in Africa, and we do believe that this could be done on a larger scale in Europe. We also have quite a lot of interest for delivering spare parts, like for AOGs, aircraft on ground, or just any special cargo, speedy deliveries. We're working also on a mining site project in Australia, where the mines pay huge fines to the government for every minute that they're not working due to a spare part breakage. Ultimately, as I mentioned, we are positioning ourselves somewhere between air transportation and road transportation, trying really to shorten that delivery time and to provide same-day deliveries to our customers. those are my contacts. You can check out our website. We have a small video of our smaller scale prototypes flying over there, or you can contact me directly at yvette@dronamics.com. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Yvette. I think most of us would agree this is extremely interesting. I especially like the last graph on how drone deliveries are kind of filling in that missing gap on the kind of time cost axis, where you are faster than road, but obviously cheaper than air freight. And in that sense, that market niche is there, and then of course the sky's the limit if this becomes integrated into the wider supply chain. And maybe Javor can later share his view as to what is the potential of integrating drone deliveries as part of the wider logistics supply chain. And now coming back to Vice Minister Sechter, who can build on some of the important messages that he already presented during the keynote speech. And again, I already alluded to the impressive Czech high-speed rail program, road network development. Maybe there are some messages that you can expand upon that we can then discuss in the panel. So the floor is yours.
I have shown the presentation. Thank you. Additionally, from me, information about this is not only a national project, high-speed railways in the Czech Republic, because then you see we are on a crossroads on future railway connection between Warsaw and Vienna, and between Warsaw, Wrocław and Munich, north and south, and we will be definitely on the crossroads. And on the next presentation are our plans towards timetable, what we reach between main cities and capitals in Visegrad countries, 2 hours for Vienna, 2 hours for Bratislava, 2 hours for Wrocław, Berlin, and from the heart of Europe to be system integrator. We developed this high-speed railways project not only on national level, but we embedded it on agenda of our not only experts, but ministers. And this is one of flagship Visegrad projects in transport infrastructure for next year, linked with this aim to, by a revision of TEN-T, completely network of planned high-speed railways in Central Europe to be in core network for 2030. Main road between Visegrad road between Budapest, Bratislava, Brno, Ostrava and Warsaw is in this flagship the priority. Czech Republic is now is additionally responsible for interconnection with Germany to Via Vindobona project, Berlin, Praha to Dresden, and with Austria towards Vienna. In my keynote, I mentioned this topic of European railway traffic management system. This is not only important for safety, but for interoperability. And this control, command and signaling system is now in Commission regulation, and we have definitely developed a national project 2018, and now we will not only with this safety system be present on high-speed railways, but on existing rails on our timetable is nationwide rail system in 2,500 kilometers until 2030. Including high-speed railways, 2,030 kilometers in next 10 years, and on the regional rail infrastructure, we developed a parallel system, light, RMTS, and GSMR on whole network. Our schedule is very, very tight. We need open market for companies, for design, implementation, and suppliers. and we are definitely motivated to be in heart of Europe leading country for this system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. And I think many are awaiting the outcomes of the feasibility study for the Prague-Dresden high-speed line. Indeed, that's one very important connector and the missing link, of course, as part of your wider, highly ambitious Czech high-speed rail program. So before we move to a full panel discussion, we have one more person, a true champion for connectivity, not just for Latvia and the Baltic states, but the wider region. He wanted to be here, but unfortunately had other professional commitments. He is the CEO of the world's most punctual airline, which is Air Baltic Corporation, with headquarters in Riga, Latvia, but of course bases in all 3 Baltic states and beyond. So we have a video message from Martin, and then we go on with the panel discussion.
Hello and welcome from Air Baltic's headquarters here in Riga, Latvia. My name is Martin Gauss. I'm the CEO of Air Baltic. Air Baltic, being based Latvian national carrier in Riga, is the largest Baltic airline, also covering Estonia, Tallinn and Vilnius in Lithuania. We are connecting both capitals via the Riga hub, but we're also offering a significant network connectivity from Estonia and Lithuania to Europe. Overall, Air Baltic is covering 100 destinations now, and with that we are a key provider of the air connectivity in the Baltic states. The infrastructure, of course, is not only us as an airline having our aircraft parked at the different airports here in the Baltics. Also for us very important is the infrastructure, the physical development of terminals, of roads, access to these terminals, of baggage holds, of maintenance facilities. So there's a lot of projects where we as an airline are interested, that they are developed. And for us, of course, main focus is on the Baltic states. But for all airlines in Europe, that critical air infrastructure, building airports, building access to airports is vital. And a very important part, last week we had the first milestone on building the terminal for Rail Baltica, a project of the Baltic states, a fast train access, and we will have the station at Riga Airport, a very important step for the future. I know in Europe we have a couple of airports which have a very good train access, but that is something I'd like to see, or airlines like to see in the future, to combine the railway with the airports, because that will be, if we look at a sustainable future, an additional way of bringing a lot more passengers to airport from where they can then take their journey to a much longer travel where the train maybe cannot compete. If we look again at the Baltic states here, we had an area where the road and also the railway system is not yet to the European levels, and we have some other areas in Europe where that is the case. And for us airlines, it's very important that all means of transportation get developed, because we are at the end only the ones which can then take the passengers beyond the reach of a train and the car. So we as airlines are interested in that development on the ground. We're going to cover the development in the air. If we now talk about the digital way of traveling, I have to tell you that in my lifetime we will not see digital transportation of any of you or me, because I think we all do not see that technology coming, maybe in a couple of 100 years. Therefore, digitalization for the airlines, if it is about transporting you from A to B, will not happen. But digitalization in general is a very important subject for us. And as we have all seen now in the times after COVID is hopefully coming to an end, is the difficulty when you take a flight in Europe today, or even outside Europe, with all the different documents you have to show for a flight. So whoever has done a flight recently has been checked for a number of documents. It's sometimes changing every week what is required, and the different passes and the different entry requirements. That is, of course, something where digitalization will help. The EU has done a very good step in having a European vaccination certificate. So that is, in the whole pandemic, the first united approach to having travel eased again, and that is of course based digital. But we need much more. Not only we airlines, transportation needs much more integration of the different partners. If we think about the blockchain technology in the future, why not have one ticket which covers then your train, your flight, and your taxi ride. And there's many things coming, many projects. We're also working on some of them. As I said, COVID passes in every country different. We need to come back to an easier travel as it is today. And those of you who arrived in Sofia probably went through all these difficulties which were not there before. So digitalization can help bring our airlines, our travel back to normal. And talking about what happened to us, the air connectivity, of course, was massively disrupted by the pandemic. There were industries which benefited from it. Other industry, the IT world, had some benefits because of online meetings. This, for example, is something which happens online. But if we go back about the commercial impact, what has happened, then we see that airlines were grounded. Like our airline in the Baltics, we were on the ground for 62 days. We started flying again, then the second wave came and we had to stop again. The same all over Europe. Thousands of aircraft parked, millions of passengers were not transported, and that was a massive impact to the economy. Now we're going to reverse it. We started again. We see already a nice upside this summer. We will and expect next year a much better year than the year 2021. And then we are looking positive into the future. Why? Because we are a key driver of economic development. Airlines are an integral part of the development, economic development. Not here, Air Baltic, only in the Baltic states, all over Europe. And especially small carriers are very important for the connectivity of areas which are not so well connected to the rest of Europe. And not only Europe, we opened this winter a 4-weekly flight to Dubai to connect then from there also to the rest of the world. So connectivity in Europe, also to the big hubs, is something very important. It is not enough just to have the big centers in Europe and all the flying from there. We need to have also that air connectivity all over Europe, which we here in the Baltics, I think, have done very well and rebuilding now in the future. The future growth for the airline industry, and those of you coming from countries where you have smaller airlines, it's very important. Please support the air infrastructure, also the local air infrastructure. It is important so that we have a functioning air infrastructure system which then connects to the railway system and then at the end of the day connects to the road system. So that integration of these 3 different parts of transportation is very important. We here in the Baltics are ready. I'm very happy that we're growing out of this pandemic. And with that, I wish you a nice panel discussion.
All right. Many thanks to Martin. I think he covered a lot of ground in the presentation, including some of the questions I would have asked him if he was here on the panel. You know, things related to the wider economic impact of air connectivity. I think it alludes also to what the IMF managing director mentioned yesterday about the multiplier effects of infrastructure, but also importantly that multimodal element. I'm very happy to see there's something that we are sharing on this panel, that no mode of transport is a silo. And if it is a silo, it's not going to work in the wider value chain for both passenger connectivity and, as Javor emphasized, the freight supply chain. So are there any questions now in the audience? And if not, we'll continue with the panel discussion, and then feel free to prepare your questions. But there are any first, the extra courageous ones who want to go off with the first question to our panelists? Okay, I will return to provoking you, but of course I have a few questions. Steph, let's start with you on the challenges of developing infrastructure mega projects cross-border. I mean, you have significant experience on that, including in this part of the world. So what would be the biggest challenges for such projects and how to succeed?
I don't think I have enough time to tell you all the challenges. I think it's fundamental that everyone in this room acknowledges that public infrastructure is difficult. We like to criticize projects going over budget. We like to criticize projects being late. And when you speak to the people that are closer to the project, you know, it's the politicians didn't decide on time. The funding is late. We ordered the wrong equipment. These are all outcomes, but the root cause I would like to summarize in half a dozen items. I talked about it earlier, the governance. We often underestimate how important the governance and the organization structure, all the way from the top, rippling down all the way to the craft on the construction site that are actually moving the dirt. And I would start right away with the customer entity. Is the customer going to be a small entity who gives delegated authority to its project management team, or is it going to be a big customer organization, hands-on, supported by half a dozen consultants? That sort of governance and organization and communication lines goes all the way through the supply chain. Needless to say, over your 10 or 15-year project phases from development to engineering, construction, and then handover, there'll be some changes, absolutely. But governance and the way decisions are made from early stage, I would say I'd put at the top of my list. The second one is the culture. I think we often refer to successful companies as having an innovative culture. We'll talk about English or Italian football teams as having a winning culture. And then on the flip side, we decide to build these mega projects, hire thousands of people that come from different organizations, and expect them overnight to have a culture, to have a winning mentality. You want to empower those people, but at the same time, you need a team that is match fit, that's focusing on delivering your infrastructure. The third item is talent. We heard it yesterday, we'll hear it today. The Western Balkans, Bulgaria, Romania, excellent example, brain drain. Skilled labor force has migrated north, better wages, better life, etc., etc. When looking at projects, you need to identify the skill set that you have, the skill set that you need to grow, and the skill set that you need to adopt. Without the people in the field making decisions, the engineers, without the workforce, you cannot deliver projects. And you need to develop that talent and keep it. I think the fourth one is scope. When I talk about scope, people don't understand. I'm going to build a railway from point A to point B. Very easy. Train station here, train station here. Happy days. Well, no, unfortunately not. When you speak to the community, they want a shopping center. The Minister of Culture wants a museum. Other stakeholders expect different things. And suddenly, your initial scope just grows out of proportion. And it's fundamental for the organization to be able to ring-fence the scope on exactly what the objectives are and sort of keep the team in a cocoon to focus on the requirements and filter the noise that often affects schedule and cost of projects. The fifth one is execution. I know your question was about execution, but I think it's only one of the 6 items. And it's not so much choosing the right contractor or buying the right equipment, it's sort of safety. Is there a whole environment where you're designing safety into your project for the constructability aspect, but also for the passenger use? And then quality. Do you have the processes and procedures in place to be able to get the design right the first time and to be able to build your project correctly? The last one, before I hand over, is probably my favorite one, and it's around leadership. Yes, it is a buzzword, But I think in the context of the 3 Cs, you need the leadership at the highest level to be able to push the project forward from its inception all the way through execution. Without that leadership, projects unfortunately remain just ideas or projects that finish late or over budget.
Thanks, Stefano. And Minister Horale, is there anything you want to add? I mean, what are the challenges that you are facing? Do they echo with some of Stefano's messages?
Yes, maybe a bit. If I am to provoke, on your permission.
Absolutely.
Of course, the area of infrastructure investment, big project, is overregulated. That's also a problem. And that adds additional time for the project. And when you actually start actual construction, you're already almost at the end with the project. And let me just make a remark that and a lot of it is EU imposed actually. And let me just make a remark that our colleagues from Western Europe built their infrastructure first and only then introduced really strict environmental, administrative, and so on requirements. And now Eastern Europeans need to play catch up with our legs a bit tight. But we'll manage. But in order to do that, and I agree totally, in order to have successful mega projects, you have to have leadership on the highest available level. You have to make that an actual top priority of the whole government or even whole public sector in the country. In our case, in my case, for example, it really helps that aside from being Vice Minister of Infrastructure, I'm also a government plenipotentiary, meaning the whole government. So I am authorized to coordinate also offices, agencies from other ministries, not only Ministry of Transport. And probably if you do that just from the Ministry of Transport, then we'll run into collision with the Ministry of, for example, Agriculture, Climate, etc., etc. So if you have a successful mega project, this is the only approach I would recommend. And also it's a matter of actual commitment, putting your money where your mouth is, because we can talk a lot about sustainability, multimodality, all those fancy words, but in the end you have to put billions of euros or dollars and to actually build the infrastructure. As long as you don't do that, it's just discussion, it's just words. And at the STH, we have already secured billions from public funds, Polish public funds. We are applying for European funds in many, and successful at that. But the third leg, which is also very needed and I would say necessary for success, is to have it, at least parts of it commercial, at least parts of it economically sound, that you can offer also private capital, private investor, good return rate, because it verifies your plans against the market and that it's actually needed. So if you have private money in it, you can offer good profits, of course for part of it, because part of it would be a public service. But then that means that you can go ahead with the project and probably it will be a success.
Very interesting. Minister Sechter, do you want to add something on this from your experience?
Yes, I agree, because this is the same situation in the Czech Republic by high-speed railways plans to encourage and develop this private-public partnership and projects in private projects joined with our infrastructure plans is very, very important for region development, for mobility in Czech Republic and in Central Europe. And without private partnership, it's not possible to develop plans. We are only responsible for infrastructure, like state, but all these plus effects and additional effects are important to manage it and coordinate.
Very, very interesting. Going now, we started discussing kind of the disruption and evolution of the supply chain. And of course, we see that some of the global e-commerce giants, they're increasingly vertically integrating and trying to capture control themselves directly over their supply chain. We've seen that from Amazon, from Alibaba, among many others. So Yvette, the question for you, what is then the role of kind of these startup pioneer type companies who are disrupting that industry, but realizing full well that they're entering into an area where, of course, the global e-commerce giants, would be quite keen to be in control of that supply chain. So what is the role also for your company bringing this disruption to the logistics industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For us, they are our main customers. All the e-commerce companies, all the big freight forwarders. We've just signed a deal with Hellman Logistics, which is one of the top air freight forwarders in the world. We'll be announcing another one next week with one of the top integrators. There are people who are not looking into the actual technology. They're not creating drones, they're not creating the softwares to operate them, anything. They're actually looking for the operators. We as Dronamics, we are the cargo airline that is going to operate those drones, and we're going to provide the service to move those goods from point A to point B. So with most of them, we are kind of their service provider, subcontractor to the end client and to the shipper.
Oh, interesting. And maybe, Javor, if I can continue with you, of course, the concept of synchro modality kind of enabled in the future, as the physical internet evolves and allows for a more efficient kind of integration between the different elements of the supply chain. And you, as the conductor of the orchestra, how do you feel, we can realize that dream about super efficient, synchronized, multimodal supply chain, including with disruptive elements and new technologies being integrated?
I think here the most important task is to have interconnectivity between all these systems. I mean, in the supply chain, you have for sure a shipper, a consignee, you have also different type of carriers, terminals, port operators, then you have the governmental institutions. And I think the main point would be here to have a good interconnectivity between all these systems, to have a digital process, to have a good process flow. And here I see the role of the freight forwarder who is able to produce this interconnectivity. On the other hand, we have also the security of the supply chain, where we have not only the physical security. When we speak about digitalization, we have to think more and more about the protection of the data, about the protection of the systems. We begin to become too much dependent on all these systems, and I see also a big possibility for improvement in this matter as well. I speak about blockchain technologies, then of course you can also speak about big data analysis, combine it with telematics. There are many different ideas which could be used here and which could be also financed by this fund of the 3Cs initiative.
I don't want to pick on a particular mode, but if we do, which of the transport modes you feel is least integrated into the chain or most difficult to integrate in a multimodal freight supply chain?
When we speak about, sorry to the Port of Koper, but when we speak about the north-south axis, maybe the biggest thing is to interconnect railway with trucks. So I think that we should more and more work on this topic, because European Union is clearly saying you have to convert to railway, but at the moment there is no infrastructure for this. I don't speak about only the rails, I speak about terminals as well. There are no green trucks to do this, so we have to invest heavily in producing this infrastructure, because otherwise, in 2 years maximum, we have to be closing our businesses because we will be uncompetitive. You know that we have to pay for the CO2 emissions now. It will start. I think it's already in force, this taxonomy, this CO2 tax. So somehow we have to deal with this, and here comes also the 3C initiative with the Amber Fund, which can finance such activities.
Thanks. Taking one question from our online viewers, and then maybe whoever wants to respond to this, but I will start, Dimitri, with you. It's a question on kind of the interrelation between the development of transport infrastructure and energy infrastructure, including the electrification and the use of hydrogen in transport, but at the same time also the use of LNG, including in maritime transport. And maybe let's start with that particular point.
Well, I can comment a bit about the maritime. But in maritime, they have the targets. They have already the targets for a long time when this should be happened. How long they are, how far they are, of course, it's not everybody saying, this will be done. But in reality, when we are thinking and we are discussing about the LNG and possible, let's say, change of the energetic, this fuel, then they're not so, how to say, enthusiastic. This will change also, they have to change as well, first of all, ships as well, okay, and they have to change as well the logic, because you cannot fill such fuel everywhere like it is now, perhaps. So you have to make the hub, and you have to make then adjust or adopt the transportation model.
Stefano, from an infrastructure development perspective, and this is something that we are experiencing also in the Rail Baltica delivery. I mean, when you build a railway project, and especially greenfield projects, I mean, carving up a lot of space to make way for the railway, what is the opportunity of integrating and synchronizing different types of infrastructure to develop inside of the railway corridor? Either that be digital infrastructure with optical fiber and 5G tower infrastructure, and also energy infrastructure. And have you seen some kind of successful cases where countries have tried to drive these synergies of simultaneous multi-infrastructure developments?
So let me give you two little examples, one following with a colleague who was talking about hydrogen and traction power. I mentioned earlier I was working on an electrification project, which is about 200 miles, and the original intent there was to switch from diesel to electrification. One sort of subtle challenge that was identified already in the construction phase was that it was more optimizing the railway line to procure hybrid trains that would run partially on diesel and electrification. So even though the business plan at the beginning was to phase out completely due to mega sort of budget restraints and sort of physical viability of running certain trains through old Victorian tunnels, they had to go with a hybrid mode, which is not ideal, but this is sort of the flexibility and sort of reverting back to your question about integrating the infrastructure with regard to energy. The second point is our motorway in Serbia, a good example. It was badged by the Minister of Construction as a digital motorway, which was very kind of her and grabbed a lot of attention. The only difference or the only add-on, which is for a country like Serbia, who is still looking to interconnect a lot of its corridors, was to put a 5G opportunity and use that as a pilot project to better connect the smaller cities around Belgrade. So that's an example of trying to double up and essentially dig once and save taxpayers' money.
Thanks. Any questions in the audience? This is the final opportunity. Please, sir, and please make your way to one of the microphones. Yep. And please kindly introduce yourself and the institution.
My name is Simeon Eftimov, and I'm coming from the railway sector of Bulgaria. My question is referred to the issue which was mentioned about the public investment and the culture change. I think my question is more to Stefano from Bechtel. It's a long-term practice in the United States for public investments in transport infrastructure, which is used later by private operators. For example, highways or ports, but this was not the case in railways. And now today's move to sustainable and green mobility, will that result in cultural change in the United States for public investments in railway infrastructure, which to be used by private operators?
Thank you for that question. So the first thing I have to say is, I don't know if you've been reading the news recently, but I didn't realize that Joe Biden's nickname was actually Amtrak Joe. And when he was the vice president, he used to travel a lot on Amtrak. Even though the United States sort of pioneered the railway industry hundreds of years ago, I still believe sort of the UK and China and Japan are still sort of leading that race. This said, Joe Biden's recent announcement to put at disposal $80 billion to upgrade their railways and support with new lines for high speed, I definitely do think it will support to change that culture. My personal opinion, I had the luxury to study in the United States, but I've lived most of my life in Europe. Americans don't take trains. Us as Europeans are used to that. They're used to driving from their car to the shopping center and then going online and paying $50 for a flight that goes from LA to San Jose. So to answer your question, I think it's heading in the right direction. I think with this recent change of events in the world, people looking to go greener, I hope, as a rail lover, that the Americans do start taking more the train.
Thanks, and many thanks for the question. It's very, very relevant, and also with the transatlantic element, and how do we teach our friends across the seas to like trains as much as their president does. Anyone else in the audience? Then I have one final question, maybe with short responses from each participant. Minister Horala, we can start with you. Again, now that you're building this mega infrastructure which will host many airlines, hopefully rail operators, road operators, what are some of the key prerequisites, commercial prerequisites, to develop well-functioning multimodal markets for both passenger services and freight services?
I would say the first crucial item is the approach, and that should be, I'm 100% sure of top to the bottom, not bottom up. So you have to design the system as a whole, have the big picture. Of course, it will evolve during the years as technology changes, etc. But you have to have the design. You have to know what house you have to build for the bricks to fit in when you actually put them in. So that's one of the key issues, the approach. The second one is to, of course, dialogue with the industry, with the environment. It's not an academical discussion. It's a very much practical exercise to build such an environment. So you have to be in constant dialogue with all the stakeholders to know what they actually need. And if I might add the third one, that will be making it goal-oriented. So you define what are your goals, what kind of services you have to provide, and then you look for solutions that will help you to provide those. Some of them could be even non-existent at the moment. The beauty of the mega project is that you have the scale that you can order tailor-made solutions for your project, and from the R&D side, it's also a great opportunity because what's the problem of R&D, especially government funded, that they tend to produce good academical solutions that go on the shelf, and now they can actually be used, and there will be actually a good market for that. We can put up a number of tenders and a number of offers to make a tailor-made solution. So you have to have the big picture, define your goals, and always be in the dialogue with the whole environment, all the stakeholders. I would say these are the three key factors.
Excellent. Dimitri, what is your take?
Well, I think the ports have different approach on that. And on this, we, especially because as a company, we have to take care about the feasibility in the long run. Okay, I mentioned feasibility again and again, but yes, listening all these discussions, I have the problem with this to understand how to make the project feasible. In the company view, you have to make the project feasible according to some criteria, KPIs, especially if you are a stock-listed company as we are. Especially when we are discussing with the ideas about development, how this should look like, of course we are agreeing on that. Yes, we need this, but how to make this profitable? Using technology, as it was said, yeah, yes, you had to make a big idea, big picture, and then you have to follow these particular pictures.
Excellent. Minister Sechter, Czech Republic, of course, has extensive experience in kind of competitive, for example, rail passenger market. There are also challenges there, of course, but how can that be brought to the next stage in terms of delivering a competitive, vibrant market for services?
For us, it's very important to maintain and develop this network coverage in railway system, intermodal, and what was discussed here between air and inland waterways and railways and highways, this interoperability to reach a full mobility, first mile, last mile, by delivering not only in freight transport but passengers. We need to integrate not only one ticket system among our operators on railway, but among public transport in cities plus railways, for example. You get a ticket for railways from Prague to Wrocław, and additionally for city transport in Wrocław. It's in near future very important. We need to maintain a special character for offering of railway, for example, night trains in Europe between our capitals. We need this balance between public services and open market to get a savings on one side, but on the other side to guarantee a technical development on market. It's for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Stefano.
My response might rub a few economists and consultants the wrong way, but I think we're an open panel here. I fully agree with the colleague that feasibility or viability or bankability in a sort of fixed element, privately driven project is absolutely fundamental. On the flip side, I've read hundreds of reports done by experts for various organizations saying that such and such road will deliver an EIR of 5, 10, 20%. At the end of the day, I think we can all agree that every 25 years we have a recession, or every 50 years, and the first thing that governments do is increase public spending and infrastructure. Infrastructure is a social aspect. Yeah, there are economic benefits, but at the end of the day, mobility of people, especially in Europe, are absolutely vital. So yes, feasibility studies are needed, but at the end of the day, It's a bunch of bean counters that are trying to forecast what's going to happen in the next 50 years. So infrastructure is good.
Great, thanks. Gabor?
I think in order to be competitive, we shall first find a balance between being decarbonized and in the same time remain competitive. And we shall also try to think out of the box, to be more innovative, because there are solutions, but I think most of the countries, I don't speak only about the countries of the initiative, I speak in general European Union, they think too much egoistic, and there is no common sense and no common development idea. Everybody wants to do his own thing for his own people, and if we try to think that we can all be something more together, when we have common policies, I think that's the solution to success.
Excellent. And Eva?
Thank you. I'll try to be short, having in mind we have quite a lot of hungry people in the room and we're keeping them from lunch. But yeah, for us and for innovators and disruptors like ourselves, I'll have to say it's regulations. Since the beginning of this year, we've actually have the European regulations for drone operators published and implemented in all European states. We're planning a test campaign towards the end of the year and certification in the beginning of next. So we do believe that we'll be one of the first drone operators in Europe, and there will be more and more to see coming up in the next years.
Fantastic, and the best success to you. And with that, we are wrapping up the panel. I would like to thank the outstanding cast of panelists here, the outstanding audience here and online, and of course, last but not least, to thank the wonderful organizers, especially the Bulgarian Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Promotion Agency. Thank you, wonderful Sofia, and see you next year in my hometown, the city of Riga in Latvia. Thank you very much.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the Three Seas Initiative. The Three Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the Three Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
The Three Seas Initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We built a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the 3Cs Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.